All right. Kansas beat Iowa State last night in a game that everybody expected, right? Exactly as we expected. 16-0 Iowa State, number two team in the country, but only one win historically at Allen Fieldhouse. And, Kansas was avoiding going starting 1-3 for the first time since 87, 88. So naturally, Kansas would go and blow out Iowa State at home. Sometimes the best medicine is Allen Fieldhouse. And, I mean, look, the game just started off with a bang. And, I think it was pretty simple. Kansas was able to exploit Iowa State inside and really, I think, you know, took away the advantage of their perimeter defense with Lipsy and Torre. And I mean, it was basically just a battle of Kansas being better inside at the beginning of this game, and then Iowa State missing shots and turning the basketball over. I mean, there was a stretch right there. I think I want to say they had 10 first half turnovers.
Yes.
So Kansas built a 23-point lead at one point in the first half, took a 20-point lead, 21-point lead in a halftime. Iowa State had a run in them and trimmed the lead to 11, but Kansas had the answer. And, this was sort of a combination of, you know, the best games of the season for some players for Kansas and some of the worst games of the season for Iowa State. I mean, Joshua Jefferson, 4 of 14. He had 5 turnovers. This was as bad of a game as we've seen Josh Jefferson play. I mean, 4 of 14 with 5 turnovers, and especially early on, he could not handle the basketball at all. And then the other side, Trey White knocked down 4 threes. That's a career record for him, or 5 threes, I beg your pardon. That's a career record for him, 5 of 7. I thought off the bench, Jamari McDowell's fantastic. He went 3 of 4 from the field and 2 of 3 from three. And Darren Peterson's minutes didn't even come up. 27 minutes. He didn't have a great shooting performance. Certainly not what we're used to from him. I mean, he's a guy that shoots 50%, and he was 6 of 15, 2 of 7 from three. And I mean, his minutes aren't even a story here. Go figure.
Iowa State ran into an absolute monster that is an angry Kansas team playing at home, hosting a high-level opponent. And I think it was a wake-up call for Iowa State. They didn't have the energy from the opening tip. They thought they were the better team, and Kansas just stonewalled them defensively. This game told me a lot about both teams. Number one, Kansas, all this talk about maybe missing the NCAA tournament and potentially starting 1-3 and Bill Self and what does his future look like and has he lost his it factor and why don't they have a bunch of NBA players? All of that got tossed aside in the first 4 minutes.
And
Can't
just
go ahead.
make sure to say, neither of us thought they were actually going to miss the NCAA tournament.
Very much so, yeah. This Kansas team is going to be fine. But I thought it told me a lot about Iowa State and how they would handle a moment like this. They still have a really good basketball team. They're going to be fine. But this game, to me, I don't think Iowa State is a Big 12 title contender. I think they're a really, really good basketball team. But I don't know that an Arizona or a Houston goes into Allen Fieldhouse and doesn't show up like that. Now, Kansas was dominant. Like, they led 44-23 at halftime. Again, this game, I felt like, correct me if I'm wrong, it was over at the first media timeout. Just the energy. Kansas was so connected offensively. And Bill Self he deserves a ton of credit. Like, they were still a top 15 team in KenPom defense. We knew that end of the floor, they were going to be fine. They have the ultimate rim protector in Badunga. They have length on the perimeter. They have hounding guards. Elmarco Jackson maybe had the play of the night when he dove to the floor to save a loose ball at midcourt that really sparked a point in the game in the first half where Kansas already had a lead and it just took them to another level. But I saw Kansas offensively sharing the basketball.
Yeah.
Their high-low game was perfection. They were bouncing back door for easy layups. Peterson comes in and gets a couple of quick, easy buckets around the rim. Badunga was efficient in the paint. Like, Kansas checked all the boxes to me. That looked like a Sweet 16 team last night in Allen Fieldhouse that I saw from Kansas.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that's how Kansas can look at times at Allen Fieldhouse. And I don't think that's, exclusive to Kansas, although Allen Fieldhouse is one of the toughest venues to play in all of college basketball. I mean, just look at the 2-game stretch for West Virginia and Kansas here. I mean, that says a lot about we continue to talk about it. It's super important to note in the Big 12 and college basketball, but in the Big 12 specifically, you got to win all your home games. You got to split on the road. If you can do that, you're going to be in position to win a Big 12 championship. It is really hard to win on the road. It is. And I mean, you look at West Virginia, the 2 game stretch they had, the 2 game stretch Kansas just had, and it says a lot, right? I mean, a West Virginia team that on Saturday shot 50% from the floor and scored 86 points, scored 48 points tonight in Houston
Yeah.
and looked completely lost. So, home game, road game, right? I mean, home game, they score 86 points, shoot 50% from the floor. Road game against a elite defense in Houston, they score 48 points and shoot 37% from the floor. So it's just a similar dynamic here. Regardless of how many days are separating the break between these games, like teams can look a lot different on a Saturday than they will on a Tuesday. And that's what we saw both for Kansas and for West Virginia. Kansas lost to West Virginia at WVU Coliseum for the 4th straight year and 4th different coach. And then they go out and beat at Allen Fieldhouse, an Iowa State team that was breathing fire and holding them to 63 points. Meanwhile, West Virginia goes and scores 48. So just shows you again in this conference, you got to win your home games. You got to split on the road. And if you do that, you're going to be in position to win a Big 12 championship. So I don't think Iowa State, by any stretch of the imagination, is out of the conversation yet. But I mean, I still think you're right, and we'll get to this later on with our Wednesday power rankings. Like, I think it's clear that at this point, who the 2 best teams are, but the 4 best teams are still the 4 best teams, and I still think that any of those 4 top tier teams can win the Big 12.
He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westlane. We'll power rank our Big 12 basketball, our top 5 Big 12 basketball teams. Last night showed me that maybe the gap between those top 4 and teams 5 and 6 in this conference might be smaller than we thought a couple of weeks ago, and it's a really long season. There is still a lot of room for Kansas to grow. That was another takeaway I had is this team could be really good in about 2 months because they are starting to play with or without Darren Peterson on the floor. This team looks more united. Here's what Kansas coach Bill Self said about the other guys outside playing around Darren Peterson.
This is more what I had envisioned. I still don't think we run our stuff. I still don't think we're an execution team. I still don't think there's a lot of things we don't do well. But if you play turned up, you look twice as athletic as you do as when you don't. And we looked athletic tonight and we've got an elite player. We've got an elite scorer. And even tonight you could see when he went to get his own, he can do some things different than anybody else can do. But the thing about it is our other guys are good players. We don't need to defer to playing just to him. But we also need to take advantage of him. And I don't think we've found that balance yet, but tonight was the closest thing to it.
Ari, I want to get your thoughts on a couple of guys, the unsung heroes, because, we mentioned Trey White. He shot the cover off the ball, right? He had 5 threes. Melvin Council played 36 minutes. Like, he didn't come off the floor. He is becoming an elite guard for Kansas. But 2 guys off the bench, each had 8 points. Elmarko Jackson and Jamari McDowell. And Jamari McDowell played 23 minutes in this game. He had 8 points and 6 assists. He didn't have any turnovers. And when he was on the floor, he had the best plus minus, which I know it's a controversial stat. Some people think it's way overplayed. But the bottom line is when Jamari McDowell was on the floor last night, Kansas outscored Iowa State by 30. 30 points when he was on the floor for those 24 minutes.
Well, and it's interesting too because 2 things. One, I believe there was a point in this game where we saw Jamari McDowell, Melvin Council, and Darren Peterson on the floor at the same time, which means Kansas essentially has 3 guys that can handle the ball and initiate the offense on the floor.
Mm.
And when Peterson came off, we saw Elmarko Jackson, Jamari McDowell, and Melvin Council on the floor at the same time. And that is a similar dynamic. Council's size allows Kansas to play those lineups because he's a guard and a point guard who handles the ball, but he's tall. He's obviously taller than Jackson and McDowell, so that gives them some really interesting versatility in terms of their lineups. And I'd be very interesting to look at some of that, long-term matchup data with Evan Mia and evanmiyakawa.com because he's got some of that. And I think that'd be really interesting to see how effective that lineup can be with those, three ball handlers on the court at the same time. The other thing is, if you remember coming into the season, we talked about how Kansas really didn't have anybody back from last year's team except for Flory Bidunga.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not exactly true. And this speaks to this like long-term development thing that we've talked about across the Big 12 and college basketball, where you just don't have the ability to long-term develop a lot of these guys. Jamari McDowell and Marco Jackson have been a part of this program for 3 years now. Now, they didn't play last year. They played 2 years ago as true freshmen, but that's 3 years of developing within the Bill Self, culture and within these schemes and this team. So we're starting to see that pay dividends. And it's sort of deceptive to say, that only Bidunga's back, because while those guys essentially redshirted last year, they both have been in this system, have been around this program for 3 years. I think that's hugely impactful. And look, Bryson Tiller too. He was there last year, didn't play, but another guy that's just been around. Like, so it's not just a group of guys that just got here this offseason. They do have players that have been here and are really helping to ingratiate the culture of this program.
Man, that is a great nugget because I thought Bryson Tiller was a freshman. I thought Jamari McDowell was a freshman. I thought Omarco Jackson was maybe a 2-year guy. Like, these are guys that we haven't seen on the floor, but that is how Bill Self has built so many championship teams, are guys like an Omarco Jackson, guys like a Jamari McDowell. Jamari McDowell, he redshirted last year. He played in 31 games as a freshman, it says. I guess he would have redshirted 2 years ago. But you know who he reminds me of? He reminds me of Marcus Garrett. He's a guy that's not going to fill up the stat sheet. He's going to give you 5, 6, 7 points, but he's so long he can play all three perimeter positions. He's a decent shooter. He's got a high motor. Defensively, he can guard about anybody. I'm a big fan of McDowell. I think he's one of the most underrated glue guys in this league.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And a guy that there wasn't much expectation for him coming into the season, and he has 6 assists in this game. And I thought he might have been the most impactful player in this game overall. I mean, Trey White was lights out, and so it's hard to look away from him. But I think McDowell was hugely impactful. Look, I think for me, this was a classic, undefeated team feeling really good about itself, going on the road against a very desperate team. And to me, big picture, this doesn't say much about Iowa State. I think this is a great teachable moment for TJ Otzelberger. And, I just like, again, I don't think there's anything big picture to take away from this for Iowa State other than like they just ran into a desperate team at Allen Fieldhouse and they were feeling really good about themselves at 16-0 and number 2 in the nation. And that happens. Like, this is a game that will humble you. And I think, Otzelberger wanted to win the game. Of course he did. But in some ways, I'm sure, he looks at this as a huge teachable moment for this team.
And sometimes teams need to be humbled. But Joshua Jefferson and Taman Lipsey and Momcilovic, like guys that have been in those spots, they looked rattled. And that is something I wasn't prepared to be seeing last night, was those veteran guys just look completely lost at times. But Kansas was dominant. At some point here on Big 12 today, we'll get to some of this college football recent headlines. FBS coaches have voted to expand the redshirt rule from 4 games to 9 games, so guys can play in as many as 9 games and still redshirt. Calendar changes have not been discussed at length. We'll touch on that. And then Jordan Seaton leaving Colorado. Deion's got to figure out what he wants his program to be. His top offer right now, it looks like LSU for over $3 million. We'll start our transfer portal tracker season with Oklahoma State, get you caught up to speed on what they've been doing in the transfer portal in hour number 3. But coming up next, more Big 12 basketball talk as Houston makes a statement. Baylor goes on the road and gets their first Big 12 win. And one former SEC coach who coached in the league just a season ago sees how dominant the Big 12 really is. He's Ari Timken. I'm James Westling. We are brought to you by Modelo. This is Big 12 Radio on TuneIn and on Big 12 Studios.